Alright everybody, hello, welcome. My name is William Terry and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Photoshop is a photo editing software. It's one of the top photo editing softwares, if not the top photo editing software out there. And it is pretty user-friendly once you get a chance to check it out. The reason I've chosen to teach you this is because I feel that everyone should have basic knowledge on how to edit photography, since everyone uses their cell phones to take millions of pictures every single day. And when it comes to education and digital literacy, you should also know how photos can be altered to really see the way in which people abuse technology in order to create false information. So let me just give you some basics on Photoshop. So first thing I'm going to show you how to do is bring a photo in. There's two ways to bring a photo into Photoshop. You can either just drag and drop a file, just drag it on down to the Photoshop button and boom, it'll pop up. Or you can go under File and Open, and then you can choose a file and open it up. So I'm just going to show you the very basics of editing photos, as well as what a layer is. There's a million things you can do in Photoshop, but I'm just going to show you some of the basics. So over here on the right hand side is a control panel, and this is your layers plane. Right now I just have the one layer, which is the background. I would like to alter this image, so I'm going to duplicate it. So to do so, I'm just going to hit Command J or Control J on a PC. I'm assuming, unfortunately, I'm not the most PC literate. This is definitely going to be a Mac tutorial. You could also right click and hit Duplicate Layer. Once you duplicate the layer, anything you do to this layer, I'll just show you real quick. I'm just going to grab a paintbrush and draw something. I close this layer out, nothing happens to the original layer. I'm going to undo, Control Z, what I did, but just wanted to show you that. That's the whole point of layers, is that it won't affect anything underneath. There's also, you can also create a blank layer on top and add things to it, and then it doesn't affect any of the below layers. There's a lot more intricate things you can do with layers, but those are the real basics. Basic photo editing. A lot of people like to add messages to photos. That's something you could probably do in a classroom for sure. So you just go over to this T for text, and it creates a new text layer, as you can see over in the layer plane, and then you are able to add text. You can change the color of the text up here. On the top power bar here, it shows your color pickers, and you can change the color of the text. I'm just going to pick a bright color so everyone can see. You can pick any color you'd like. You can swim up and down. I'm going to go with a bright red, and then you can type out text. Hello from the Terrys. And then, it ended up being in a weird spot, so if you come over here to this arrow function, it allows you to move things around whenever you on that layer. So for instance, this here is a text layer. I'll create another new layer, a blank layer, by clicking this button here. Just to illustrate again what the arrow does, I'll draw some more paint, and then using the arrow I can move the paint wherever I want on the photo. So that's some basics. So we've added text. Now say that we click back on our layer that we're trying to alter. Say that we want to adjust the lighting. If you go up to the top controls and go to Image Adjustments, it has different adjustments. There's brightness, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue. All of these are very specific changes that are made to a photo. For general editing of photos, I found that the levels is the easiest for a regular person to use. There's a sliding bar, and it adjusts the darkness and the lightness at the mid-range, the shadows, and the highlights. So, you know, if you want to adjust the lighting, you just kind of decide what you want to do. So I just kind of adjusted just a little bit, brighten it up a little bit just so you can see the difference. But that's, as I said, these are just very basic instructions on the basic things you can do. If you want to adjust the color, you go back up to Image, Adjustment, and Hue Saturation. That pops up another power bar that has sliders. This hue here can change the color in general of the image. The saturation changes the amount of color in the image. So if you wanted the colors to really pop, you can do that. And this is just a master color. This is every color in the image, but if you wanted to just change specific colors, you can make the reds really red, or tone down the red. Typically, if you want to adjust skin tone, that's one of the things you do. A lot of magentas are in our skin color, so I just hit the magenta and I drop down the magenta, and you can see slight changes in skin tone in my family here. So that's just something you can play with. I really say with any kind of photo editing software, you just can't be afraid to play around to learn. Obviously, there are tutorials online for specific changes, but I taught myself Photoshop by trial and error and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Super popular things that people like to do in Photoshop is change the color of certain items. The way to do that is you select the item that you want to change the color of. There's a couple ways to do it. I'll just show you really quick my two favorite ways. Over here is a quick selection tool that allows you to highlight what you want to change. So I'm just going to quick select my son's hat here, which is yellow. I'm going to do this pretty sloppily just so that we can get a general idea. But I'm going to do the quick selection of the hat. So the hat is the only thing that is selected, and I'm going to duplicate this hat by once again hitting Control J, and since it is selected, the only thing duplicated is the hat. To illustrate, I'm going to shut down everything and show you, look, we just have a hat now. All right. Okay, so we're going to take that layer and we're going to bring up the color hue saturation. I just used a shortcut to bring it up, and then you can just change the color on that layer specifically. You could also hit this colorize option to make a more professional looking color change. It takes more of the light from the background and change the color. As you see, I didn't get his whole hat, so there's a piece missing, but as I said, I'm going to do this really fast just so you can get the general idea of how this works. So making a copy of that layer and changing the color of that piece of the layer and change the color is one way to change the color. A secondary way to change the color is actually to go down here and create a hue saturation layer. And up here, once you've created that layer, there's color change options, and you can just change the color of the entire layer to different colors. But since I only want the hat to be seen, what I do is I invert this layer by hitting Command I, and then I select with my paintbrush, over here is a paintbrush, the part of the layer that I want to change the color of by painting the brush here. It sounds complicated, but really it's very easy. As I say, it's just trial and error and practice are the best ways to learn how to use a tool like this. Changing color, adding things to images is another very popular image changing option that people want to learn how to do. I'm just going to show you how to do that very simply by taking another photo that I already have and dragging it and dropping it into my existing photo. That creates a new layer, and I press enter to take the layer in, and then you can transform this layer however you'd like by hitting Control T to transform the layer. And now I've added something to the background. Obviously, this is obvious. It doesn't fit within this background, but with manipulation, you could make it seem as if it was in there. I'm just kind of making a collage right now, just so you can see. Let's see, anything else that are typical photo editing that people like? We've added text, we've added another layer with a different photo. I've shown you how to adjust the colors. I think the last thing that a lot of people like to do is to erase things and change them to remove them from the picture. So I'm going to show you the quickest, easiest way on the newest version of Photoshop that we have. I'm in Photoshop 2018. 2019 has this, and obviously everything after has it as well. Over here on the left-hand side, we have what's called a spot healing brush. I'm going to choose to get rid of this graffiti here to make my picture look prettier. So I make sure that the layer is selected that has the graffiti. I've selected the spot healing. I have on the top here different options. There's content aware, create texture, proximity match. I'm going to go with content aware, and I'm just going to paint over some of the graffiti here. And so with the content aware, I just realized that there's so much graffiti that it's just going to think that that's part of the background. We actually want it to choose something that's not graffiti. The computer, it's AI, it sees so much graffiti, it thinks that's natural. So I'm actually going to switch this to the regular healing brush so that I can select it. I turn off the AI basically, and I make the decision. So first you hit option and select what you want everything to look like, and then you go back to painting over the bad parts, for lack of a better term, and then your graffiti goes away. So it's just takes a little bit of time, but you can paint it away slowly and surely. So I've effectively erased the graffiti from this image. Oops, made a mistake. If you ever make a mistake, you just undo by hitting Command Z. And there you go. I'm not going to try and Picasso this. It's you get the basic idea. So overall, realistically speaking, it will take hours and hours of practice, and I'm trial and error, as I said, to utilize Photoshop, but it is a program that is amazing for editing photos, creating images for use in a myriad of different ways, especially in education. As I said, for digital literacy, it's important to know all the changes that can be made, like the color change here in my son's hat, as well as being able to erase things that exist and add text where text was not before, combine several images. These are things that you need to know people can do in order to be aware of how people try and trick you. That being said, if you'd like to learn any more about Photoshop, I highly recommend looking into tutorials either on YouTube or by Googling it if you're the type of person who likes to read tutorials. I believe that's a good basic information. I hope that you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.